That would be me, wouldn't it be? Hmm. Hmm. There we go. Well, I see you there. Let's go to my channel. Hello, YouTube. There we are. Trying to get the chat open. So about a little bit. We can mute this though. Sounds working. Well, how's it been? It's been a titch. A week. Go back to here. What was the last stream? What was last week? Wasn't it? Yes. Basically getting in one a week. Not even quite a week ago. All right. Anyone having problems with the new Facebook profiles pages? A lot of my friends are complaining that it bounces. I have not had it do that, but I've had the old Facebook do that to me before. But it hasn't done it to me in a browser. That sounds annoying. I kind of like the dark mode option, so I'm sanguine about the mixed blessings. It's no longer, it's clearly meant to be more touch friendly. Used to be able to hold over things with your mouse cursor and it would drop down automatically. Now you've got to tap to bring up menus or pages. But I started using it off and on when they first made it an option to explore and gave feedback, and it's gotten better. It's, you know, every time I've done a new look, it's different and people hate it. I am not that attached to the status quo of anything, so I was open to it being, and it has pluses and minuses. I really like the dark mode, so that's good. I'm just looking at it right now. Otherwise, I like it. I like the big images. I don't know. There's stuff I'm sure. I found that the adapting to the new modalities of how they've done the UI, and like I usually deal with things like friend requests on my profile. It's about promoting my art, so that happens, and I have to screen them. And I'd worked out a really slick kind of process that let me go through the batches. Once I got more than 5 or 6 or some of them, I'd sit down and have a system, and it was very intuitive, and I just sort of slipped through the process of checking out, proofing, and clearing everyone. And now I had to refigure it out. I did. I can like the one-page interface they have now. So you switch views, you can see what I'm working on. Some more that art on the side in the last view was the first page for the story. I've been working on it for a while, so if you want to check out my history, you'll find, there it is, the process posts. I ended up having a lot of... I didn't want to get to bed too early. And so when I logged off work, I was a bit tired. I sat down and got a lot of this done. So I'm going to work on some more blocks. I've been building it, now that I'm working digitally, I've been building it kind of like animation cells, which also introduces some interesting possibilities for literally animating some of this. I've got access to Toon Boom now, so I might explore that. But like all the foreground tree is one layer, and that lets me draw the blocks in an intermediate layer between them and the fence and the, what's the background copy? I don't know. But that, what did I have on background copy? I don't see anything changing. Let's get rid of a few. I'm reopening this. It's just an empty layer. Must have been a process transfer layer. So that's all on one layer. That's on another layer. That's on another layer. A little masking for the tree. And there. The masking both makes the working on other layers easy because I don't have to worry about drawing around the tree. Plus I'm going to do a tone effect on the tree. So I want a way to quick select just that complicated form and then mask it off to do the shading. I'm really liking developing a zipatone technique for this story that's influenced by the way I do ink washes. Sort of the same kind of like strategy about how I use the tones in line, but with a really crisp end result that happens because of the way that works out. I've got lines through my figures. How do I do that? I know that one is masked good, so I can go in with the mask and fix that. Oh, no, I don't want all layers. There. That's good. Double check. Yep. Cut. Clean that up. Also why masking things in places is a wise strategy, I find. I've been getting a lot of hours clocked doing digital work and thinking in terms of animation because I'm actually designing props for animation. So when there's a moving part or a thing that you have to think about, these are, right now we're doing roofs, so I spend a bit less time, but I'm trying to make things easier for later me and or the cleanup artists I work with by breaking things that move into pieces so they can be more easily animated, doing some of that problem solving. Oh, you're on a wrong layer. Fence. How is that? Oh, it's not 100%. That's right, because I was working on... There we go. Right, that's why I left it there, because as I'm working on the blocks, it helps you able to see through the tree a little bit. So that's fine. But we can... Do we want to? Does it matter? Might as well. All of them. Oops. Did I get them? There. Yeah. Good. Just clean that out. So masking is good. Very powerful tool. You make any mistakes, you can exploit the mask to catch them, just like I did. I'm very pleased with the chaotic nature of this tree, not tree thing. The mood. So I'm going to be doing, I think, bark today. We'll see how fast that goes. So, hey, I can mask my work area and work with some abandon. I think I'm actually going to separate it out so I can have even more abandon. And let's explore some options. It's supposed to be a burnt tree. I want to give this a try on some parts. Yep. I knew that would work good. I was exploring brushes the other day, and I had made a mental note that this would be a great strategy for a complex but textured burnt tree. To make sure I'm on where I want to be. Every now and then, it's a good check. I haven't said it enough times yet. I'm really loving working in Clip Studio. Through the job, I have access to an updated version of Photoshop, and there's some, there's some desirable features that I wish I could get in Clip Studio. But on the whole, I spend a lot more time working on drawings in there. It's excellent that that's an option, that they make PSD as a viable format for working in, so it's easy to move back and forth as I go. We use, things like legally licensed fonts for props, for example, which is important. Like, you can hand draw stuff too, but it is a damn hell of a lot faster to use a font for a lot of background applications and signage and things like that. But you don't want to have any. You want a streamlined process for registering that for a commercial property. Less headaches. Better. Less headaches are better. So, of course, it's pretty normal for studios to go with the simple solution of just having an Adobe account. And then that comes with, amongst other things, all the software, but also all them fonts. So I've been dipping into that a lot for the job, coming up with designs for all sorts of fun period signage. It's an interesting job. Like, in one day I'd go from drawing diapers to seriously gore, boxes of things, old telephones, you name it, anything a character interacts with. So it's really stimulating that way. As like survival tips for young artists. As jobs go to get by and pay the bills, it's hard to beat some aspects of the animation business. There are problems like every industry. There's long been issues about creative labor in all fields, so that comes up. But on the whole, specific studios aside, as a way to make a living for an artist, it's a really good option if you're comfortable with, to a degree, letting go of authorship. So I don't mean like, you still want to get credit. often important, if nothing else, for your CV and your future hireability. But you're putting aside your personal creative ed, the opposite of what I'm doing right here, to be a pair of hands on loan for the studio to do something creative, but for them. If you can find some like personal engagement in it, that's awesome. But it's not a thing you bet on if you're looking at it for as a stable sort of day job scenario. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's, you know, artists have been making a living applying their skills long before we've had the option to make it more about personal self-expression. I'm all for both, but there are those that, you know, oh, you're selling out. I'm sorry. Do you say this to plumbers? There are times when, you know, I've seen plumbers do work where obviously there was a bit of artistry to it. And I guarantee you that that plumber probably doesn't do that for every single job. It depends on what you're paying them, or whether it's for them or a friend or for somebody else who's maybe a bit of a Karen and annoying. There's a range. I guarantee you there's a range. And art's the same. You come to me and only want to pay me the minimum amount and then ask a lot and be a difficult client. You're not going to get great service. I may just kind of phone it in at the end, because you only get to be, you know, like there's this classic Venn diagram: good, fast, or cheap. You can only have two. And the same goes for, you know, the interpersonal version of that, which I think actually Neil Gaiman once talked about this very succinctly. He had a similar version, a take on it that I've always felt with, is like, you can be really easy to get along with. You can be just objectively brilliant as an artist. We could call it talent, but I'm not a fan of the word talent because it's a skill. You worked. You had to earn that. And you can be fast or slow. Well, fast. Those are the three positives to, like, keys to success. You must be at least two. You can be really pleasant and fast and not be the most amazing artist in the block and still be able to make a living and actually be very hireable and pleasant to work with, and so people do so. You can be brilliantly talented and fast, but a roaring asshole, and sadly you'll probably manage. You might tend to burn bridges a little bit, and I don't think it's a viable, particularly sustainable way to go. But I've known people like fit that bill, and they do manage to keep getting work because their work is just, you know, arguably good. If it's for a short-term commitment, why not? People make choices about who they're willing to work with that I don't agree with all the time. And you can be really pleasant and really amazing, but very slow. And you'll probably manage an auteur. Perhaps. One can hope. I hope I'm pleasant to work with. I know how to do things well, and I know how to do things fast. Those things are often relative and somewhat interdependent. There's only so much well you can do fast. But then, like, by design, a lot of animation work is as simple as possible. And like, if anything, I still have the director pointing out, simpler, make it simpler. Because I'm prone to detail. And it also takes a while to totally become intuitive with a particular show style. It's only been a couple of weeks. So I go easy on myself for that. I expect to be getting the notes at this stage. And so hopefully I'm easy to work with. and I try to be pleasant, and I'm trying to be fast, but more to the point of like meeting the deadline, not blowing the doors off anything. But you do by nature with animation. We don't get a lot of time per show. Gotta go fast, move on to the next thing, go fast. Soon I'll have people to pass things on to clean up. We're in pre-production now, so it's more solo work, but once things really get rolling, I get to delegate some of that, which will be good. Right now, I'm enjoying the work, but it is taking it out of me by the end of the week. I'm sleeping in, doing the stereotypical weekend sleep-ins, catching up. Doesn't help that we have a new kitten, Leo, and he decides it's time to play around 6 a.m. sometimes, or 4. I don't love that. And it's annoying that we don't actually have a door on our bedroom. He is learning not to wake me up in the middle of the night, though, a little bit, because I squirt him relentlessly. It is dangerous to wake the human late. They are wrathful. That is the lesson to be learned here. He does not like being squirted. Quack cats generally don't. It's good non-harmful discipline tactic. Learning how to hiss good too. I do a good cat hiss. I was talking to someone in a message group for Aphantasia who's just getting into sketching. And how you conceive of and think about things as someone with aphantasia is a bit of a mystery to people who are used to visualizing. But the thing is, I think I've gone 2 really good ways to try to get it across pretty much to everyone I've talked to. And it's the combination of 2 things. One, when you write, do you have to see the words in your head before you do? I don't mean like an inner voice. I mean literally printing or typing. Most people might not be able to touch type, but they can eventually start to just type words without spelling out the word. So obviously there are exceptions. Being dyslexic, I'm quite aware of that. But most people just write letters, handwrite, even if it's just printing, or type words into their device, or if they're feeling very retro, an old typewriter. And don't go through a process of thinking about the structure of the word. You just do the thing. Learning to draw from practice and observation, and learning techniques like instructive drawing to aid in building things, assembling things from your imagination. So imagination, air quotes, is really the blackboard in your head in which you conceive and strategize the creation of a thing that's always informed from your experience. So it's not like anyone creates things from whole cloth without that. So all artists are employing having seen things before to do a thing, and then draw from observation and study and practice. They may have, some people rely heavily on studying other artists' work. And that's actually a time tested and true way to learn, but not like the only one. So people have some strong feelings about that, but it's a good one. Master's studies. Just make sure you properly credit the source material. In case, for those who don't know, it's you write after the credits. Where'd my layer go? Is it this one? Yes. Name it. Tones. Actually, true tones. Oh, I gotta uncap my letters. But that's fine for now. Let's check the chat. I haven't looked at the chat. Bye-bye. With 3 of you watching. Hello. I didn't mention because I had a bumpy start, but I have the Discord open. You'll find the link for the Discord, I believe, in the description text just below. Oh wait, no. Oh, so hello there, your toaster. Okay then. Well, you know what? If you know where the Discord is, you know where to find it. There are links elsewhere in my profile and on other past videos. And I want to keep trying. But the voice channel is open there. Anyway. I was talking about aphantasia before I got distracted. The idea that you need to see a thing to conceive of things is a misnomer. And so it's hard to explain how I conceptualize, but I don't have to visualize to do it. The one thing that is always true, but I find this is true even with visualizers to a large extent, is everything is theory until there's marks on the paper, or in this case, pixels on the screen. Because you can have a hypothesis about what would make a good image, and you may even be able to visualize it to a high degree in your head. But the number of people who have genuinely photographic memory or visual internal mind's eye are all vanishingly small. They're as small or even smaller than those with complete aphantasia. So most people live somewhere in the middle, and they have a muddy notion of what things are. And even those who think they have a very vivid experience, it's still largely a constructed experience, and it's driven by observation, how much they saw and had to work with, and how much they're able to imagine from experience and observation. So one of the things that happens with artists is they take study seriously, they go out of their way to inform their mind's eye, be it a literal one or just the abstract one of the experience, to inform your eye more generally speaking, and understand how the world's constructed, understand how biology works, understand in the rudimentary levels. We don't have to be like scientists, but there's a reason that a lot of early science came out of the pursuit of art and artistry and architecture and design, and a lot of this stuff has its roots in the arts, or what we call the arts. Science is a very creative process, especially the discovery part. And like all hypotheses, you have an idea about what might be so, but application is where the true thing occurs, and you discover if your idea was like, oh no, that's a bad idea. Or, I love it when a plan comes together. And variables in between. Thank you for the compliment about the tree branch. It's not a tree though, actually. We don't get to that detail till later in the story. It's basically just feathering the texture with a dry brush, gritty dry brush pen brush on Photoshop. Something I can do with my actual brush pens too, which is why I like it. This is a very familiar technique. And they do a pretty good job of like making it even easier, frankly, to control. It's much more reliable in some ways than an actual brush. I like the randomness, to be clear, of real. One of the things that I'll probably never totally like give up on working on paper for a few reasons, and one of them is that the element of the organic they've gotten very good at emulating that with digital algorithms, no doubt. But it is more controlled, which makes it pleasant to work with, particularly when you're on a schedule or need to do revisions to follow a client's requests. So I've become quite happy about this device and platform since as a commercial tool. Makes my job a lot less painful. I was never, I took it as being part of the job to have to do revisions to a reasonable degree, but that doesn't mean I don't like making that process as painless as possible all around. Let's take a scroll back, get some perspective. Yeah, that's good. I'll be doing a few things for the bark, but I like that. So I've been doing a lot of this hatching, and I still like that, but this is a lot less time consuming. And for large areas, I think just as effective. That's one of the things that, like, doing work in animation, when I worked at Marvel, the upside of it was not that I would always want to work this fast, but learning to work for deadlines teaches you a lot about being efficient. And that pays off when you're doing your own thing and you want to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Let's make the mask full for now so I can focus on my tree tones. And then let more blocks in afterwards. So yeah, that, again, the animation thing is, there's a lot to be taken from that. That's good. We'll see how things progress, but I could easily see doing it for a bit of a spell. I know I mentioned in one of the first videos, part of the reason I wanted to take I was on the lookout for a gig like this, and would like to maybe settle in for a bit with a studio. We'll see how long. Productions tend to gear up and gear down, but a lot of it has to do with luck that way. But if I had a couple of years or more, that would be good for some of the aspirational life plans. That's good to notice. Let's go to our mask and clean that out. Smaller tool. Bingo. And back to tree toes. I can mix it with the hatching. This is going to be also noticeably jump out at the eye because past pages I've been using just dot screen with some similar effects. And I may even experiment, see what happens when I take this layer and make it a dot screen. It's not like a copy and experiment with that. There's a gap there too. Let's clean the mask. And back to tree tables. I want to set that back. More burnt. Even more burnt. Let's highlight. Yeah, hopefully this organic tone and texture might help the trees call attention to themselves narratively, because they are, in fact, a none too subtle foreshadowing. It's a short story, and I don't have time to walk about. Pandemic-inspired short body horror comic. In case anyone's wondering, this is a black and white comic. So that's the plan. I find that for narrative work, it's a preferable mode to work in because I like to leave some bandwidth open on the page for the reader's imagination to occupy a bit of space. And if I'm doing all the work for them, it makes the story a much more passive, less engaging process, I think. You know, that's going to depend. Obviously, there are going to be people who prefer work that holds their hands a bit more. But it is not to my taste. There's nothing there. Right. Hello, Chana Mount. No, Mount. No, man. I'm teaching probably my last semester of, my last semester of teaching for a while at SIN right now. I also ended up refunding a private student's last class because I didn't feel like they were really that into it. It was, a thing a relative had gotten them. And I didn't know what to do with them anymore, and I didn't have the energy to deal with a difficult student who wasn't really engaged and kind of zoning out during Zoom meetings. It wasn't Zoom, but same idea. And I paused my Patreon for a bit because, I have long-term plans to keep it going at the moment of doing this animation work. Makes it not particularly necessary and hard to realistically maintain a high enough pace on my own stuff, at least for a bit. So I'm sort of getting used to the new gig. I don't have the bandwidth to be doing this stuff except for in my downtime, which is a lot less now. So, and by downtime I mean like awake downtime. I'm 50. I'm not interested in running the count at both ends anymore. I did that. That was my 20s. I don't think I'll be doing that again anytime soon. Missing a bit of tree here. So we want to go to foreground. Yeah. And let's just use that because that's a quick change. I can mark in a little bit of dark right there. Yeah. Go to the mask. Switch to white. Put that in. And go to the lasso. Oh, there we got the lasso. Good. Okay. So, back to brush. And back to black. So yeah, I was saying, I don't think I'm going to be teaching for a while, so I'll just be doing YouTube live streams when I have some downtime. And I'm missing a branch there. Do we care? No, we're going to leave it be. And I'll probably be spending some of my time as a supervisor. Is that? Oh no, it is selected. Okay, what happened there? What am I seeing? Interesting. I don't know why I'm seeing that line. I guess I did that a couple passes. So you're doing texture like this. I'm trying to do something that's sort of like bark-like. Spoilers, in the end it's not actually a tree. But it has the appearances of a plant. No, not that. I want to set, there we go. Master settings for my, yeah, that's a bit better. So yeah, these things aren't actually trees, but they have the superficial aesthetics of one. And what was I saying about that? Lost my train of thought resetting the brush there. Right. I want something that gives across that impression, but is also like easy to do a large area fairly quickly. And the secret of a lot of like detail is actually not doing a lot of detail. It's learning how to use texture. And the texture can do multiple things for you. It suggests surface, the tactile experience of surface. Makes it very tangible when you come up with a texture that people feel like makes sense and they could touch. And while I don't have like a mind's eye, I often feel like when I look at a thing, I can imagine how it might feel to the finger. And I'm a very tactile person in general, so that's built on experience, touching things and thinking about rough surfaces and different kinds of materials and how they feel to the finger. Comes from growing up in a, I guess what you'd call these days, a maker household. My mother made sandals and was an artist. My father was a mechanic, bit of a doodler too, but that wasn't really a serious personal pursuit. And lots of artists on both sides of my parents' families. Even now with my wife, her father's a painter. Very creative environment in general. So kind of making things, and you know, as a kid, working with and making toys for myself out of leather as a small child was a very tangible thing. And walking around and getting my hands covered in grease and messing around my father's garage and him showing me stuff This is all before I was 8, so we're not having any advanced mechanics, but we'd get in there and he'd show me what he was doing, and it was cool. I understood some of it. Would have learned more had I had the time, of course. I think that helped establish a strong intuitive sense about doing things with my hands, making stuff. And then that informs my art, because I try to make stuff that feels tangible, based on the memory of how things that are tangible feel. Hello, Antonio. What time do you normally do the live stream? It's random. Usually late. And these days, more likely than not, weekends. I think, traffic-wise, it would be better to do them earlier, around noon my time. But this is when I am doing things. That's just the way it's going to be. On the weekends, I need to take it easy and ease into any kind of productivity mission. Just chill out, sleep in, spend some time with the lady and my cats. She has rediscovered Sims. I am not much of one, but my partner, Angela, is a big-time gamer. Played lots of games, but currently is enjoying micromanaging little bonhommes in Sims' lives. She also made, of course, a virtual version of us, which is very funny. I advised on my doppelganger. Got pretty close. All in all. She also does all sorts of model making and miniatures and craft work, and her day job, when we're not in pandemic lockdown, is front of house manager for a theater, which is a fairly creative job, and she has a background in theater as an acting, singing, and dancing, triple talent when I met her. But it's hard to get work in English theater, and she doesn't particularly like the audition process in Montreal. She could do probably French if she wanted to, but I think the bigger issue is she didn't particularly like auditioning, and decided to work in the back of the house instead. Which is pretty common. It's nerve-wracking stuff, trying to get parts as an actor. You have to be up for a little bit of self-abuse, really, emotionally. Psychological torture. But it's nothing. You grow too used to it, right? Yeah. Compared to like most people who work in animation studios, just to generalize a bit, but real lifers are more like, I'd say, the average person who's, they want to get credit for their work, but they're not particularly I didn't say interested, but like they're not particularly hung up on the art being their personal creation. It's just a fun, creative way to make a living. As opposed to, there are other people who are in animation as a way to support themselves, but they're definitely focused on some other more individual, and I don't mean this as a negative, but ego-driven pursuit creatively. They want to do something of theirs, their voice and stamp on it. Those people might become directors, but also just as likely they might go off and just be in animation for a time and then go off and do other things sometimes. That would probably be me. Although like I said, I wouldn't mind spending a good long spell right now for economic reasons. But that's what I've done in the past. I've spent like, I think it was 3 years doing animation work, and then a couple more off and on in Montreal when I moved here. I kind of phased out then and tried to get more illustration work. And then also pursued more of my personal comic stuff. But doing individual work, again, it's like acting. There's a performative element. You're putting your own stuff out there. It's you on the line. And so there are a lot of creators and artists who do a graphic novel or two, but find it just too nerve-wracking and insane and go back to freelancing. And I think it's pretty common. It's tough. I'm a little indifferent to what people think, which I'm not sure it's a good thing, but it helps in that I'm doing my personal stuff more to please myself, and I'm just trying to contrive a situation in my life when I am doing that where I can sustain it. Like teaching part-time for a long time was a good way to do it because it left me a lot of free time and make me just enough money to pay the bills. That's not a scenario I want to maintain right now, so I've switched to studio work. But it was a really good way to do it for a while. And the economy was generally stabler. So that'll work. This J shape is achieved by moving the paper, the screen in this case, to the angle where my natural movement of my hand is really close without much effort. So when I move down to about here and trying to make a curve with my wrist, I reach the limit to a certain degree and start cuffing my fingers in, and that creates a path that changes the angle of attack exactly the way I want to in the case of... It's something you want to watch for when you're trying to draw circles, that you only have an even circle here or here, but they're two different sets of angles. And if you combine them, you'll have a hard time creating a true circle, which I can do in a couple of strokes just by rotating the paper and doing partial arch using a single joint. Like the wrist is a good one, but that's a pretty big circle. You can adjust by moving your pencil closer to your wrist to create a smaller circle. The inking that I did even before I did the tones just now, that was my strategy, is to write the paper so that I would achieve that particular arc. Make the process of doing the compound curve, which you get off of a French curve, a lot more mechanically easy and quick. I knew some of this sort of like kung fu of drawing technique before I ever worked for Marvel, but I definitely pursued a lot more. So I'm joking about the kung fu drawing, but in my videos on grip and drawing technique, you'll see I mentioned that I had early encounters as a kid with specifically Tai Chi as a martial art, but of course also watched lots of kung fu movies, and so had a general fondness for and some experience with martial arts, Asian martial arts, body movement, also a bit of yoga. Basically, my mother took these things, and as a little kid, I got dragged along. And I generally tended to enjoy myself. They were interesting excursions out into the world, see how other people lived, spent some time in different temples and community spaces, diversity. And the ideas that I picked up from Tai Chi about body movement strongly went into informing how I learned and developed my drawing technique. It looks like I have everything I need. Yeah. So let's start first. Hide. All right. Is there? I forget now. View. Is there any hide selection? Guess not. Okay, close. Well, I can always just reselect the mask. That's the nice thing, as I mentioned about the... Oh, I clicked the crop. Dope. Undo. There. Yeah. So let's see what happens. I want to save a version of this, but mess around a little. If I remember correctly, I can introduce filters directly. How would that work again? No, I don't want to do that. Interesting. So let's just try that as an experiment. Let's go to tones. I've got these already in place from... So that's just my brush strokes. That's basically what I thought. So let's now... Is it delete? No, I think it's fill. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Well, I prefer, let's keep my tree tones. But I want to select my mask. And yeah. So now I'm introducing white zipatone dots over top of my textures and the modeling texture. And yeah, it's getting really dark and a little difficult to see, which is I kind of want, but I can also use it, like right now I'm making it jump from the background. Going over the dark lines there is actually, I kind of like that. It's like a, at the edge of the view, the foreground being a little out of focus. I often think in terms of cinematic effects. I don't know if I would say I'm a film nerd. I was a film nerd. There was a period in the 90s where I was a pretty hardcore film nerd, but I just sort of fell out of the habit. I'm still a cinema buff and think in terms of cinema quite a bit when it comes to my comics. But there was an era there where I was a very committed habit of like renting 3 or 4 really good auteur movies every weekend and making a point of sitting down and watching them, if need be, more than once to suck the marrow and learn a thing or two. Nope. Let's get rid of, I don't want to see the blues right now. Yep, there we go. Can't seem to make the dots go away. I have to figure out if that's possible. But at the very least, if I can just simplify my view and I'm able to focus more on what I'm doing, building depth at the moment. I'm loving this tool. Being able to render out this diversity of values and surfaces is just divine. Selection, take a look. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's because of the mask layer. That's all right. I've got them as well. So I can do this. Well, no, I don't want. Here we go. There we go. And then we go back. And it was modeling. There we go. Dot layer. Clean that up nice and quick. Me likey. And that was very time efficient. The last 2 weeks of doing props for the TV show have definitely improved on my strategizing and use of Clip Studio. It's been very useful that way. How long have I been doing this? For an hour. Well, there you go. An hour of applying tones and doing a little bit of depth work with the white dots. I think I could do more, so I'm comparing this to and like matching what I've established in previous pages. What did I do with that? There it is. Let me show you. Let me show you my features. This PC. Where's my... There we go. Pulling up my folders. So the last page I worked on, I was very pleased with the finish on, and before I end the session anyway, I'd have to pull this up and do a continuity check. So I've changed my strategy slightly, but that's the first view of this tree. And it's very similar actually, but I think I didn't include the brush effect for textures that I was doing for the first part of this video. But there we go, it matches nicely, so good. Continuity check cleared. There we are. This is in reverse order, of course. 4 and 3 versus 3 and 4. Will they be facing each other in the book? Let me think for a minute. 1, 2, 3. No, this will be a page turn. So that, and then reveals to this. Which, yes, I remember writing that for now. That you see the tree in the background, but we get a sense of scope and scale with this change of angle, and then I just like the framing of them in the branches. Yeah. So I'm going to get up and stretch. I'll definitely be doing more work tonight, but I'm not sure if I'll live stream all of it. But it's been an hour. I'm going to go get on my treadmill and jog for a minute or two and get some water. Stretch my legs. You do the same. Often in my classes I have to check the time because I easily go way too long without getting a little leg stretch in. And that's not healthy. You should remember to do your stretches. Stay limber. Did you hear me cracking? Check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Salgood. It is on pause, but it is not shut down. You can, all my blog posts there. I post work in progress updates. I might go do one now with the current version of the page. I post links to my live streams once a week. This is a process pod stream, so like every weekend, very minimum, I'm gonna be doing one of these videos. Who was it asked in the chat? Chat was Chanamout. Is that how you would say it? Wanted to know, when do I do the live streams? It's kind of when I can at this point. I was doing them almost daily for a little while there, but now that I'm working 9 to 5-ish, actually more like 9 to 6:30-ish at the animation studio, I have a lot less energy for live streaming afterwards. So I usually take it easy and then chill out and then go to sleep early. But weekends, I'm going to keep up with the process pod. So I'll be posting and drawing my own stuff and talking about the stuff and the things. And occasionally I'll try to plan a demo or two. But like I said, I'm kind of phasing out teaching as being a substantial part of what I do for a while, just because of the practicalities of it. I realized with the private student I have that I just don't have the energy to commit. It's so easy, like in the class that I'm teaching, that's not too bad, although I'm really burning the candle at both ends for my Thursdays right now, because I have to put in about 8 hours at the studio and a 3-hour class, so it's intense, and it's right in the middle of my day too. So I work for a bit and then log out of work and log in to teach, and then go and log back into work afterwards. I got 6 more classes to go, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm probably gonna take a pass on anything for a while while I'm working in the studio after that, because it's a bit much, especially when the deadlines overlap. Then with the private students and Patreon, well, I might do what I can through Patreon, but I definitely don't want to take on private students like I was planning to before I got the studio job, because when they go well, it's a piece of cake. But if you have any difficulty communicating or motivating a student, getting them to interact with you, getting students to show you homework is kind of critical. Like in some ways, when they apologize to me in classes, I kind of want to shrug a little bit and just say, well, it's your loss. Because with a group class, teaching at SIN, there's always a few who are pretty regular about posting stuff to the blog and showing me their work, and I get a chance to interact with them and give them feedback and help direct them. And if it's done in a public way, then if that benefits everyone in the class. We all get to see that process. I even learn from it usually, because there's problem solving that happens when I'm solving their problems that I can apply to mine sometimes. But when it's a one-on-one student and they're not interacting as much, then it's really noticeable. Like if they're not doing that in a classroom, but half the class is, it's your loss. It's sad, and I can't really give you anything personalized. You'll benefit from being around with the other ones, and it can work out probably for you. But I don't notice it so much because I'm kept busy with the people who are engaged. But if I'm doing one-on-one and the student's not engaged like you need to be effective teacher, you need something to feedback to. You can't just arbitrarily sit there and dictate things, and you're not even sure what to dictate when people don't show you their work, so you can't judge where they're at and what they need to learn. And I don't know, it's difficult to not enjoy it. And that would be a problem normally, but I don't have the energy to solve the problem right now, working days, and so I can't realistically pursue that. So, c'est la vie. A shift in life plans. These are good things, actually. I know it freaks a lot of people out. I certainly don't necessarily always look forward to the effort of going through big changes in what you're doing day to day, but at the same time, I feel like it keeps the brain young, and I usually treat challenges like that as an exciting change of scene rather than a fearsome, obligatory process. I think it helps mindset-wise. So I'm excited about the studio work in a lot of ways. And teaching was great. It was very rewarding, but I'll probably be hanging that hat for a little while, and we'll see. Probably come back to it later. It's good to know that I can. When I first approached the idea of teaching classes at Sin Studio, I had a bit of, I don't know what you would call it, anticipation, fearful anticipation, because I'd had a bad experience in school as a kid, so I really had a hard time imagining myself teaching. I hadn't seen it done well, but I had this notion of trying to be the kind of teacher that I didn't get to have. So that's the focus I used for my own pedagogy and process, and I think that helped. I don't think it was perfect, but I found it very enjoyable, and I found that students are forgiving. So if you're honest with them about your own learning and you just try to provide them with information and experience, usually it works out fine. And I always made a point of teaching the students I had, not the idealized version of a course. So there definitely is a course plan, but I would try to get a sense of who the students were and where their skills were, and then adapt that to the curriculum, or adapt the curriculum to them. There we go. And even sometimes change things up drastically. Be quick on my feet. Meant more preparatory time though, and that was a big problem with. I wasn't getting paid by the school for prep time, which is common but unfortunate. There are some places that do. I was talking to one of my coworkers at the animation studio who's also teaching at another school, and they were saying they got paid for I forget what the ratio was, but a fair amount for like every X number of hours in class. You got so many out of class for prep, and that was paid for. That's solid. That's what you need. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that from my employers for teaching. So at least this time. So that was one of the shortcomings. I was pushing to see if I could get that to happen, and this opportunity to do animation stuff came up at the same time that came clear that they were unwilling to do it, so it made the choice to jump to animation work pretty straightforward. And then yeah, we'll see in the future with a different school maybe, or a different scenario, or just when I've got a different economic situation, if I can create a scenario where my overhead's even lower, I could afford to teach for cheaper, or afford the lower income, I should say, of teaching. Yeah, that's a problem though. We don't pay teachers nearly enough considering the work involved. It's just a fact. All right, I gotta go do that stretching. Thanks for watching, if you have been. If you want to subscribe, you know where the bell, the buzz, the thingamadiggy is. And I have been kind of stalled on finishing the editing for the interviews we did for the Sequential podcast, but you will find the Sequential channel on the front page of my channel. There's a link to the Sequential news channel, and I've got a slate of long-form interviews with Sam Noir. We interviewed people that I need to finish editing and get up before it gets too damn late. We spent all summer talking to people, and then I've got the backlog, and they need to get up there before they're still relevant. There's a preview, a short version of our Ho-Che Anderson interview that you can already watch. Check it out. Check out our style. Had some fun editing those. If we do a second season, I'm going to definitely sort of insist on, we're going to have to just do them straight to the can more, though. They take a while to edit. And if I'm doing the animation day job, I don't necessarily have the time for that. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll spring on hiring an editor. That's a thing. People do that all the time on YouTube. I've noticed that. I just have these like ideas about how I want it to look, so I kind of want to do it to myself. But every once in a while, you need to learn to let go of things. So with that thought, don't give in to perfectionism. You don't need to see in your brain to conceive of things. Just do it. Try it. Make changes. Get it to work. And if you don't have the time, there's no shame in taking smart shortcuts and maybe hiring out a little bit and spreading the opportunities. Just make sure you pay for people. I like that LA, what is it called? It's like a museum, an LA museum, casino museum, which is also a casino. And they want artists to volunteer their time to do the back room. Go check out my Twitter. I bitched about it on Twitter. There's a link to the Linktree. Is it my Linktree? I think I put my Linktree link in there. Yes. All the stuff linked into my Linktree, including my socials. And yeah, there's this Las Vegas studio thing doing the same old work for free for exposure, except it's in the back end. Like, the staff will see it. That's nice. But fucking pay me. This is $1 billion casinos. They got no business asking for hangouts. It's just bullshit. This is a con job. Don't go for it, folks. Get paid. All right. Good night. Be well. Have fun making creative stuff. And if you need to and find the opportunity, enjoy making it for a living too. It's good. Good way to make a living. See you around.